A new champion is released and then they receive a hotfix buff? You see it, right? Come on, I see it, you see it, we all see it. Volibear is going to be way overtuned. What's up, Summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides video. Volibear has received the hotfix buff, and we're here to quickly run you through this recent change. Unfortunately, following his rework, Volibear hasn't been performing too hot on Summoner's Rift. As always, Riot is giving a new champion some help to make sure that they can find success on Summoner's Rift. Real quick, I want you to check out the description for links to become a part of our Discord and subreddit. We want to connect with you guys, so give it a look if that interests you. Anyway, let's get started with the video. First up, let's talk about the state of Volibear in regards to his first week's performance. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, but he hasn't been living up to the expectations one bit. He's hovering around a 41% win rate in the top lane and a 43% win rate in the jungle after his changes. Remember though, that we saw a very similar trend with a not too distant release in reworked Fiddlesticks. Even a reworked champion is a new one. Even if Riot did choose to keep certain aspects of Volibear's gameplay intact, it's difficult to argue that he's anything like his pre-rework self. A new champion will always present a learning curve that summoners will have to journey through. As a result, players should expect his win rate to naturally rise as people get more accustomed to playing the new Volibear. At the end of the day though, these numbers are a little bit too low, and Riot has decided to step in. As opposed to before, Volibear doesn't have as much damage, or at least that's how it feels. There have been a ton of shifts in how Volibear brings value to teamfights. Before his rework, he was sort of a juggernaut. While easily kiteable, he had incredible base damages on his abilities that could win him early 1v1s or skirmishes. The power has shifted dramatically following his rework. Instead, there's an emphasis on dragging out fights to make use of Volibear's W, his bread and butter damaging and healing ability. In order to make use of his new W, you have to hit an enemy with it, then wait for it to come off cooldown for a second cast on the same target. At minimum, that's a 5-second wait, and in other words, you need to wait at least 5 seconds before fully coming online in a fight. Not to mention, you also have to go through the effort of stacking up Volibear's passive now. The first buff Riot has given Volibear is that his Q's movement speed has gone up. Like with any juggernaut, buffing mobility of all things is a pretty dangerous move. However, drastic times call for drastic measures, and Volibear's win rate once again signals that something needs to be done. His Q's movement speed has been buffed from 10 to 30% to 15 to 35%. A 5% movement speed buff on the ability is at minimum 17 more movement speed on the ability. With this change, it should be a little bit harder to kite Volibear at all stages of the game. Not only will Volibear prove to be a stronger laner, he'll also become a stronger jungler as well. With some extra movement speed, there's no doubt that his ganks will become a bit more potent than before. In spite of the addition of his ultimate, Volibear's mobility still remains a bit of an issue that he faces. Every champion needs to have some weaknesses built in for the sake of balance, so it's quite understandable. However, it often doesn't feel as rewarding as before to reach a target. Rather than increasing said reward, Riot has taken an unexpected approach instead, making it easier to attain it. With this buff, they're saying, we like the level of impact Volibear has when he gets on top of targets. In other words, we have plenty of other champions that delete their opponents once they manage to get their hands on them, like Darius, Garen, and even Set. Volibear isn't intended to deal as much damage as these types of champions, but at the very least, it should be a little bit easier for him to reach his targets as a result. With the combination of his Q and ultimate, Volibear is naturally more mobile than basically any other juggernaut on the roster. Rather than focusing solely on damage, Volibear is a juggernaut who's more focused on tankiness through his W and E, as well as utility through his ultimate. Next, Riot has given Volibear more damage on his E, and it's a pretty huge buff. The damage on his E has been buffed from 60 to 180, plus 7 to 13% of his target's maximum HP, to 80 to 200, plus 11 to 15% of his target's maximum HP. A base damage as well as a scaling buff means that this ability is going to hit so much harder than before. Understandably so, too, as this ability is quite difficult to land without any setup. A raw E is practically impossible to land against players who are paying attention, so it should have a significant impact when it actually does hit its mark. On top of this, the non-champion damage cap on the ability has been increased by 50. Not only will this ability be much more effective during fights, it'll also help Volibear clear waves and the jungle more effectively than before. Sure, that might not seem like a game-breaking change, but when added in with the other buffs, it's definitely quite nice. What laner doesn't like to have more wave clear, and what jungler doesn't like to clear their jungle faster? Alright, that concludes our breakdown of the Volibear hotfix. Thank you so much for watching, we really appreciate it, guys. I also want you guys to take a second to check out our YouTube channel and ProGuides.com. We've got plenty of informative as well as educational content for you guys and want you to check it all out. Alright, until next time, best of luck on Summoner's Rift, everyone.